We have a very impressive lineup. Some of the best ministers Jamaica has ever had are here with us today. We're going to have Minister Daryl Vaz, who will be first, and then after Minister Vaz, we will have Minister Tufton, who we're very excited to see after his accident. He is going to be here in person this morning. And then after Minister Tufton, we will have Minister Olivia Grange, who will be here to also be answering your questions and to speak a bit about what's happening in their areas. As we begin, I always start with a few things that are noteworthy. And I think the first one is to speak to issues related to misinformation and disinformation. There's a lot of talk about this area, and I think it's important that we clarify. The administration has always been and will always be deeply committed to protecting democracy in Jamaica. And we are deeply committed to protecting democracy from any threats that there are. And governments around the world are dealing with this issue of misinformation and disinformation, especially on social media. And we've seen it. We know what happens. Anyone can say anything, and it is amplified around the country and around the world. And it is important that as we protect the rights of our people and protect the right to freedom of expression and speech, that at the same time it is grounded in truth. And so we love the robust debate. And I say it all the time. It is important in a democracy that we can have dissent and that we can say, you're not doing good as a government. We don't like what you're doing, or you need to do this better. That's what a democracy is. And that's fine. And that's what we want to encourage, but not encouraging persons to post blatant lies online that then fuel a lot of this issue of disinformation and misinformation. And so it's very important that we understand that what the government is saying is that what is posted on social media needs to be based in truth. And in that vein, what we have said is that where there are issues or instances where we know individuals have posted things that are not true, that we will have to go after those individuals in terms of prosecuting them. And there are laws that are available. And I think the goal of everything that we are doing is ensuring that we are in an environment that is based on truth. That is what it is about. And so there is no tracking of people. There is no curtailing of people saying anything that is negative. That is absolutely not the case. It's just that we have to protect truth. And so this notion that we shouldn't go after those who perpetuate fake news is really strange, because around the world we see it happening in every country. Fake news is a problem, and it's fake, which means it's not truthful. And we are a country that is built on truth, and we will protect that in this administration. In terms of the way forward, what we will be doing is primarily focusing on social media literacy, and that's important. How do you know what's true? Because sometimes you see these videos and you think, oh my gosh, that sounds right, but you're not really sure. And so we will be using our broadcasting commission, and they've already independently started to work on a public education campaign that helps our Jamaican people to understand what's true, what's not, how to figure out if something is true, in fact. And we will, obviously, as a part of that, point to some of you in this room, the traditional media in this room. We will say to them, go to traditional media. That's where you can actually find out if something is real or is not. And so the primary thing we'll be doing at this time is enhancing public education to help individuals to understand what's real and what's not real. And I know I get a lot of questions sometimes on AI. AI is an area that we have to really be looking at, because with AI, fake news, disinformation can be even more potent. And so it is very important that we teach Jamaicans how to understand what's real, what's a real video, what's not a real video, so that we can have conversations that are based in truth and not based in untruths. And so I had to say that at the start, because it's a very important issue that we are grappling with, and it's a conversation we have to have as a people. And so I know the administration is happy that we're having the conversation. There are no new legislations at this time. We have some that are already on the that are already there. We have the Cyber Crimes Act. We have laws around libel. There are already laws that exist and that can be used in terms of prosecuting individuals who do not speak truth online. But before we even get there, the key thing is, let us have public education. Let us have a discourse about what's the right approach going forward. In terms of cabinet, I'll just note two things. The Community Action for Rewarding Engagement program, that is CARE, which is being undertaken by the Heart NSTA Trust, that was approved in cabinet. What that means is that over 1,800 of our young people who are not in school, not in any training, that are not employed, will be able to benefit from this program. They will receive a $15,000 transport grant each month, and each week they will get a $13,000 stipend, which will allow them to do their training and also to be able to earn some money while they are doing the training. And this is coming out generally of our discussions with individuals who fall into that category. We see them every day in many communities, on the corner, not working, not engaged in training, and we asked them, what do you want? And they noted that they would want help with transportation and they would want help with stipend. And this approach with stipends while you are in training is not new. It's been done in other countries. It's done quite a bit in Latin America. And it is one that I think is a good innovation for us to have in Heart. And so that will start in September, and over the summer, the preliminary work will be done towards that. And I'll give more details at another point. The other thing I will note is PEP passes are up. We've not promoted that as much as we should. Education is, as we all know, probably the great equalizer, and it's the one that will take our country forward, and it's important that we focus on it. And there are a lot of problems in our education system, but when there are successes, we have to amplify them, and that is one. 30,302 of our students sat the 2024 primary exit profile PEP exam, and they did fantastically well. 86.7% of all students who sat the exam received placement at a school of their choice and were in the proficient category, proficient or highly proficient. That is a significant improvement over the last 4 years, and it is something that is worth speaking about over and over again. And then in terms of cabinet, we also approved the official funeral for our former speaker, Violet Nielsen, and that will be organized through the Ministry of Culture. And I see that Minister Olivia Grange has come in, and I will stop there in terms of cabinet roundup. There was a lot that was discussed at cabinet. We will discuss some of it here with the ministers, and so I'm going to move right along to Minister Vaz, who is going to update you on many matters. He's the one that's doing quite a bit of work. We see him in the news every single day, Minister. We see you. We see the work that you're doing, and he's here to take some of your questions after his update.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Oh, don't touch the mic. Too late. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. I'm here this morning to address a few issues that have sparked considerable public interest. These include the recent publication of adjustments in toll tariffs for the Highway 2000 East-West Corridor, Kingston to Portmore and Mandela to Vineyards, the review of the Road Traffic Act 2018 and Regulations 2022, and of course, the increase of the JUTC fleet, and of course, expansion of routes. So just by way of background, the toll road, a vital component of Jamaica's infrastructure landscape, is a cornerstone project under public-private partnership between the government of Jamaica and private investors. This concession agreement was signed in 2001. So the concession agreement has certain terms and conditions, that have to be lived up to, and that is what we are doing as this administration. So the adjustments in toll rates slated to take effect on Saturday, July the 6th, are part of an annual review process mandated by the concession agreement between the government of Jamaica and Trans-Jamaica Highway. These reviews are based on several economic factors, primarily influenced by United States Consumer Price Index and exchange rate fluctuations since the inception of the agreement, as I said before, in 2001. It is important to note that these adjustments are necessary to ensure the sustainability of the infrastructure investment by our private partners who undertake significant financial commitments on behalf of the Jamaican government. The tariff adjustments are carefully calculated within the parameters set forth in the concession agreement, which was, as I said before again and repeat, was signed in 2001, 20 odd years ago, and therefore is binding on the current administration. For the upcoming period, the rates have been, in fact, been set below the maximum allowable increase. What does that mean? It means that what the increase is, they had a gap that they could have gone higher, but based on negotiations, what I'm going to announce now is what was agreed on. And this, of course, is demonstrating a responsible approach by the toll operators, Trans-Jamaica Highway Company. The Portmore leg, which is the highest traverse leg of the highway, saw the least increase. I can't recall definitively, but if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 40% of the usage of the East-West Highway is on the Portmore leg. The Class 1 is from $340 to $360, representing a 5.88% increase. Class 2 from $610 to $660, which is an 8.20% increase, and Class 3 from $1,020 to $1,090, a 6.86% increase. There are some benefits that will accrue to the public, and that is in way of discounts. Users of the T-tag will continue to benefit from the discounting rates, including a 10% discount for frequent users after the 10th passage in one toll week, and a promotional 50% discount on T-tag purchases from July 6, 2024 until September 30th, 2024, as the government seeks to encourage cashless operations. So between the 6th of July, when it increases, to the 30th, if you convert from cash and buy a tag from Trans-Jamaica Highway, you're going to benefit from a 50% on the tolls for that period. That's significant. And that was something that was negotiated by instructions from the cabinet to me to see what we could get in terms of easing some of the pain from the increases. Infrastructure development. Recognizing the challenges of the increased traffic due to the vast amount of development along the corridor, housing developments and other industrial developments, plans for additional ramps at critical intersections are underway. These improvements are to be funded entirely by Trans-Jamaica Highway Company, aiming to alleviate congestion and enhance connectivity. The revenue from the toll collection is being reinvested to the benefit of the road users. Over $700 million is being spent by Trans-Jamaica Highway to improve the ramps. Firstly, at Freetown, which is currently underway and expected to be completed by the first quarter of 2025 at a cost of $320 million. And Heartland, NROC is in receipt of the request for approval from Trans-Jamaica Highway for the construction of an entrance and exit ramp. This work will begin by the end of this calendar year at a cost of $400 million. So, ladies and gentlemen, what does that mean? There is increased traffic and usage in certain areas that were not made provisions for in the early stages back in 2001. and we know what is happening in terms of development. So you're going to see one new ramp open soon at Freetown, which will ease a lot of the burden on the persons, especially in peak hour in the morning and evening. And then, of course, Heartland, which is another area that's being hugely developed in housing developments that is causing congestion on the thoroughfare. So this will give access to Trans-Jamaica Highway, East-West Highway. In the spirit of transparency and public engagement, the proposed tariff adjustments were published in the newspaper, inviting feedback from citizens until July 29, 2024, which is a few days' time. So I encourage stakeholders to participate through the available channels, including telephone numbers 929-5119 and 1-888-991-4692, and of course, toll authority at mtw.gov.jm. Onto the Road Traffic Act 2018 and Regulations 22. Further to previous announcement, the ministry again reiterates its undertaking a comprehensive review of the Road Traffic Act 2018 and Road Traffic Regulations 22 in keeping with this commitment and to support the intent of the existing legislative framework to ensure respect, safety, equity, and responsibility on our road networks. The following are the key considerations for modification: renewal of driver's license for persons 70 years plus. The law is proposed to be modified to require the submission of a medical certificate proving that a person is fit to drive. A supplemental form will be introduced, and the current form retained by the doctor as a guide to the matters to be considered in determining the question of fitness. Adjusting the applicable fees to be less than the amount charged for a 5-year renewal. This amount will be contingent on the lifetime of the driver's license of the elderly. What does that mean? At 70, you won't get a 5-year and have to pay for a 5-year. You'll get it based on whatever it is that you have been approved for, which may be a year, maybe 2, which what obtains in other jurisdictions. School zones will be implemented with modifications to state where they start and end. Provisions will be made for pedestrian crossing and proper signage. The hot button, one that has caused great public debate and in some cases action. A comprehensive review in relation to demerit points will be undertaken as it relates to fines and demerit penalties under the Road Traffic Act 2018 and Regulations 2022 by the Public Transport Operator Steering Committee. The recommendations are being reviewed by the ministry with a view to be taken to cabinet in short order. We had set a timeline for June 30th, so we are up on that date. So we are working towards that to get it to cabinet shortly thereafter, the 30th. With respect to moving violations causing accidents, fatalities, and disorder on public road, demerit points will be imposed. Versus non-moving static offenses, consideration is being made to remove demerit points for static offenses. What is static offenses? A faulty headlight. Anything that is not when the car or caused by the car moving. And it is something personally that makes a lot of sense to me. And I will be absolutely supporting how to implement this in a seamless manner. I believe that the demerit points for non-movable offenses will put drivers at risk of getting enough demerit points to lose their license within a short period of time, which obviously is not the intent. The intent is to keep the roads safe and the discipline. Review of provisions relating to electronic devices. There's a lot of ambiguity and complaints surrounding the offense of driving and operating a vehicle while using an electronic device. The revision of the Act seems to remove the ambiguity nature of the offense. So we're going to be looking to see exactly and be more definitive in that. I myself have been the subject of that in relation to having a telephone in a hands-free as against on the passenger seat, as against in my lap. And the bottom line is that it's a discretionary situation by each individual police officer, which there's almost 12,000. I don't know how much is traffic assigned to traffic. But to me, it needs to be more definitive. So we're going to work on that. And I've got the complaints and the texts and the WhatsApps like everybody else. The number of driver's license, and this goes back to the demerit points in relation to what I just mentioned in relation to movable and non-movable. There was a figure being bandied about 20,000 PPV operators. I've done the research. There's 23,243 licenses that currently would be eligible for suspension. And of that amount, 11,193 are PPV operators. This figure is reflective of persons who have PPV listed on their driver's license, but not necessarily operators in the public transportation sector, which means it may be less. So we'll be looking at that also to see and break down in relation to these 23,000, what category they fall in: public transportation, private driver's license, and what are the categories of offenses that are outstanding in relation to these, to see how best to treat with it. So again, I'm very aware of the concerns and the anxiety that is being faced, and I just ask for continued patience and to reassure that we are working on it. So now to the good news. Sometimes ministers and ministries come with nice, easy things and harder things. This one is of particular importance. Since taking over the transport portfolio in 23, it has been my mandate to improve the commuter experience while using the public transportation system by increasing the number of bus allocations and reducing the wait time. You'll recall I've already reported that we have acquired 71 buses since I've taken up responsibility for the transport portfolio. I'm now pleased to report that an additional 100 new CNG buses are scheduled to arrive in Jamaica between the 15th and the 17th of July 2024. This addition would bring 171 new buses since May 2023. I don't think anybody can argue that that is nothing short of miraculous, especially based on the procurement guidelines that we have to follow, and I can assure you they have been followed assiduously. In this thrust to reduce the commuter misery index, the JUTC has embarked on the following. We are currently in the process, on top of the 171 new buses, on a refurbishment program. The government, with all its demands, cannot afford to buy all the new buses that we need at one time. The Minister of Finance has already committed to 300, which we have 100 landing in July, and we're hoping to order and pay the deposit on another 100 by the end of this calendar year, which would mean that by March, April of 25, another 100 new buses would be in the fleet. So the JUTC through the government had purchased 24 Golden Dragon diesel buses back in 2016. We are now currently refurbishing 8 of them, which should be in the system in July as well, and another 16 that are at PPC and are going through the process, and hopefully we will have those by the end of this calendar year. Those 24 buses are specific buses to deal with the hill routes. And the hill routes are Stony Hill going up into the border, Temple Hall, and of course, Papine going up into Irish Town, Mavis Bank, Garden Town, those areas. Those areas require a specific type of bus because of the road network. So they have to use smaller buses to be able to. So it's not just about the big CNG buses that you see going from Papine to Halfway Tree and from Spanish Town. It's also to deal with the hill routes where the kids come down in the morning with the parents to work and go back up in the evening. Right now, we are at almost rock bottom. I think we may have 3 or 4 of them that are in proper use. So getting 8 more for back to school and 16 by the end of the year will be a huge, huge impact for those areas. And I see it when I drive. Waiting time sometimes up to 2 hours. And there's no other bus you can improvise and put on those routes because of the terrain. And they have to be specially manufactured as well for suspension, etc. So for those rural folks, they are, especially East Rural St. Andrew, West Rural St. Andrew, those constituencies that have those areas can look forward to some reprieve within another few weeks. Yeah, we'll soon talk about your constituency. And then, of course, the most important part, and I need to stress this, is economic value. So a new one of these Golden Dragon buses are 160, 170,000 US dollars brand new. These 2016 buses, we refurbish them for 70,000 US dollars. And that includes everything: engine, interior, suspension, everything that you can think of, with a 2-year warranty. So again, we're getting value for money, and they give us a lifetime of 10 more years. I won't talk more on the future of how we're going to continue with buying and refurbishing and maintaining, because this is not the place. But just to say also that with the new buses that are coming, that are CNG, most of them will be based in Portmore. So that will allow us to take some of the existing buses and put them on the other routes. So over the weekend, I led a team to Canada to look at a proposal to refurbish Volvo articulated buses. That's what we call, layman's term, the two-in-one, those long ones that you see that have a joining piece that puts two in one. There are 30 of those dating from 2007 to 2013 that have been pretty much parked and not in use. Want to put those 30 back in use so that we can take those 30 and what we have outside of the new buses and put them on the routes that are causing the major misery in terms of people getting in and out of their routes. We will be doing that and doing it in a structured way. And I just want to spend 2 minutes on this. Buying 100 buses and just putting them in to the JUTC fleet is not the answer. You have to look at exactly what you have now in terms of your fleet, where they apply, what the maximum and optimum buses would be, and what you have now, to make sure that you do a complete reallocation to allow for all routes to be properly serviced. Those areas that we don't have enough buses, that JUTC now has franchise for, we will bring in public passenger vehicles to make up. So if we are short 2 buses on a route or 3 buses, it doesn't make sense JUTC keep the franchise as a monopoly. Work out something so that other public passenger operators can fill the void. So in essence, what I want to do is to be able to do that. But most importantly, with the road infrastructure that we have built, St. Thomas, East-West to Maypen, and now to Mandeville, JUTC needs to look at how we can expand our operations to serve not only Spanish Town, but other areas of St. Catherine, going into Clarendon, and also Kingston, going into St. Thomas. So with the influx of these buses, we'll be in a very good position to do that. And I saw Minister Tufton just asked me about that a while ago. The cost of a new Volvo articulated bus is $1.5 million US dollars. We can refurbish these for $285,000 and get a 3-year warranty and a 10-year life on them. As I said before, this has to be the new way. It's not just about buying buses. It's about buying them, maintaining them, and refurbishing them before end of life, rather than waiting until they're end of life and then we end up in the problems that we are. So, last but not least, we don't want to make it seem as if everything in transport is about the KMTR. We have a company that is a government company called Montego Bay Metro that's limping. We're going to do a revision and an assessment of it to see how and what we can incorporate in terms of some of the new and refurbished buses to be able to assist in a restructured Montego Bay Metro, because Montego Bay and the surrounding parishes are growing as fast as Kingston and St. Andrew and the others because of all the hotels and all the industrial and housing developments as well. Transportation is a major issue in the West. So I want to just make sure to say that help is on the way, but I just need to get these buses so that I can see exactly where we are. But the intention is to find some way in terms of the restructuring of Montego Bay Metro to be able to benefit from the improvement in the public transportation system, not only just in Kingston, but obviously in the other areas. So I thank you very much. I have to leave, so I don't know if I can take a question or two. Any questions for me? Oh my God! Oh my goodness! I was hoping that I was so clear that there was none.
All right, Minister. Good morning to you. All right.
Morning.
Mahiri, is that you?
Morning, Minister. Mahiri from Nationwide here. Now, we understand that there was a fire at the Spanish Town bus depot over the weekend, and you had said that you had received intelligence regarding the fire, but you were waiting for the investigation to be completed before you spoke on it. How could you give us an update on where that investigation is, and has anything been revealed that matches your suspicion?
So I haven't gotten anything formally yet. I do have a meeting today at 2:30 with the Deputy Commissioner in charge of crime and the management of JUTC. And it's not specific to this particular incident, but it's ongoing issues, security issues within JUTC. High among them is the continued theft of diesel oil. So I'm sure that I'll get a report in due course. I don't want to preempt my own thoughts and intelligence, but bottom line is that something is not right and it needs to be dealt with, and it needs to be dealt with once and for all. And that meeting today will take me in a path in terms of what support can I get from the police and, if necessary, the military to really put a clamp down on what's taking place at JUTC.
Good morning, Minister. Sashana Small from the Gleaner. Minister, you were to have a meeting with InDrive last Thursday, I believe. Can you tell us the outcome of the meeting and if they have indicated, their willingness to adhere?
So good meeting, initial meeting, especially in light of the fact that it's the first meeting in person, putting a name to a face. A working committee was set up. They had a meeting yesterday at 2:00. And there are several more meetings scheduled in relation not only to InDrive, but InDrive and Uber are the two big ones. So we want to make sure that we kind of bring them together so that whatever it is that's being proposed is being discussed at a table with everybody rather than individual. But I'm hopeful that we should have something positive to say in relation to interim measures that address our concerns as government and, of course, the police concerns. But they did come and they did attend a second follow-up Zoom meeting yesterday, and obviously it's moving in the right direction. Most important is the safety. I think I would have said last week that I was quite surprised. It's two different business models completely. And InDrive basically has 14,000 registered drivers. Now, I don't know how much of the 14 are active, 14,000, but one of the first questions that came to me is what happens when somebody signs up and for one reason or the other, you take them off of your platform? How are we notified? How is the public notified that this person is no longer and it's not advisable that? So again, the security concerns are a lot, but thankfully they're at the table and we are working through the thing. And the police are a part of that discussion.
One of the stipulations that you have for these operators was for them to set up office here in Jamaica in order to operate. Have they indicated their willingness to do that?
I wouldn't confirm that. It has been put on the table, but there has been no finalization of that. But that is going to be a requirement. Any government would have to have somebody that they can relate to in Jamaica, whether being an agent or whatever. But with what is happening in Jamaica and the world today, money laundering and all of that, we have to make sure that the companies that we are dealing with are absolutely fit and proper so that we don't get, as a government, tarnished for any issues that may arise with these companies.
Thank you, Minister. I have one online, and just to make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned, there is a question concerning whether or not the increases relate to the Williamsfield leg of the highway as well.
So, say again.
The Williamsfield leg, the Maypen to Williamsfield highway.
Yes. So that's something that we're having discussions with. It's a major concern to me because the fact of the matter, with the new infrastructure that we have put in, if we don't have proper management of it, which includes scales or some kind of penalties, then we're gonna lose those roads in a short space of time. So it's a part of the RTA, the revision. We are looking at it. And one of the suggestions that have come, not from government, but from stakeholders, is in relation to those quarries that are providing these materials and putting the emphasis on them to make sure that they are held responsible for the quantities and the quality, etc., to make sure that when those trucks leave their establishment, that they are conforming to the Road Traffic Act. So it's a hot button situation because those of us who drive a lot, when you see those trucks on the road, you can actually see the road starting to sink already. And we've spent billions of taxpayers' money, and it cannot be that a few hundred trucks that are not keeping within the laws are causing this level of damage. So it's something that I have high on the agenda, and we will give you more. National Works Agency is responsible as part, so we have to have an inter-agency meeting to see how we tackle it. That's it?
Thank you, Minister. Yes, that's it.
Thank you very much. And just to add on Minister Dana Dixon's point that she started with in relation to the fake news and the false news and the personal attacks on persons. I said it before and I want to say it publicly again. I don't like where it's going. We must campaign on policies and programs and achievements and plans, not on personal attacks. And I don't like where it's going. And I agree with you 100%. I am the victim of it. From 1986 to now, I can write a book. And the time has come that there must be sanctions.
Thank you, Minister. All right.
Thank you, Minister Vaz. And for this very special edition of Post-Cabinet Press Briefing, we now move to Minister Chris Tufton, who is our Minister of Health and Wellness. And I also have to acknowledge our CMO, who is in the audience. And we also have some other senior people from the Ministry of Health. You notice he has come despite his injuries and despite his accident. And this, of course, shows his commitment. And I hope you won't tell his doctor that he did this. I don't believe he is supposed to be here, but he really did want to be here in person. Minister?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Dana Dixon, Morrison, and my colleague, Ministers Vaz and Grange, to the members of my team led by the Chief Medical Officer who is here, and to all others who are here. I'm going to try to be as concise as possible for personal reasons. I'm standing on one leg, but also just to ensure that I control the narrative because I think it's important. So I have two quick statements. One, I have written personally, not with the aid of my technical team, because I feel so strongly about it. The other with the full mandate and support of the team based on cabinet's deliberations on Monday. So the past week, and I'm reading, we have seen a sustained and coordinated set of attacks on our civil servants and volunteers in the public health system by the opposition party. I have observed no less than 5 spokespersons and between 8 and 9 releases from that organization, among other things, calling on for the resignation of the chief medical officer, the permanent secretary, the board chairs of Southern Regional Health Authority and Northeast Regional Health Authority, citing spurious reasons for those claims. I hold no brief for myself, as I understand it is the political season, which will give rise to political machinations. And so today I'm not expressing a view on my own behalf and in my own defense. I will take them as they come and I'll respond. But I would like to publicly express my deep disappointment and indeed condemnation of these unwarranted attacks on public servants, on their reputation, on their professionalism, and on the institution that they represent. The opposition has clearly decided that their best hope for political office is to pursue what I will classify as a carpet bombing strategy. In other words, throw as much mud as you can imagine, as you can conjure up in your imagination, and hope that something will stick. It is, in my view, a morally bankrupt strategy that should not be supported or encouraged. Let me say, as a public servant and one who aspires to higher office where we are now and want to continue so to do, but with a lot of experience, that burning down the house to improve your chances of controlling it is an indication of moral bankruptcy and does not serve the interests of the Jamaican people. I want to encourage the men and women of public health to continue to do their work and to ignore the noise. Jamaica appreciates their efforts. I certainly appreciate their efforts. I want to further say that I don't intend to fall into the trap of responding to every outlandish claim made by the opposition. The reality is they keep moving the goalposts. At first it was missing ventilators, then it became ventilators not working, then it became ICU and high dependency units. The goalpost keeps moving in order, frankly speaking, to continue their agenda of maligning and discrediting an entire system, including our civil servants. I understand from my sources that next week will come a new wave in that pictures are going to be circulated about the conditions in hospitals, some fabricated, others may be achieved in particular circumstances, to further give negative impression of hospital services. We will remain focused on the work we have to do and ignore the noise. And I call on all well-thinking Jamaican not to be gullible to these impressions and these purveyors of negativity and false narrative. Let me be clear, we do not operate in a perfect system, and we have never said that we do. It is always a work in progress. Where there is a need to reflect, to assess, and to adjust, we will. But we will not fall trap into responding to every spurious claim that surfaces based on this carpet bombing or what some may describe as burning down the house strategy. That does not serve anybody's interest. And I want to just...
I don't want clay dust inside of you or chemicals in the place you...
to the interests of the Jamaican people. So that's my narrative. No help from the technocrats. Let me begin now with the narrative coming out of cabinet that we put together. So I want to recognize all who are here. On Monday, June 24th, 2024, cabinet received a team from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the regional health authorities and the health facilities. The team addressed the issues in the public domain that have provoked a series of public discussions in the social media space primarily. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, through the regional health authorities in response, have investigated three of the deaths and prepared reports on the findings which were submitted to cabinet for their consideration. I'm going to comment on what the conclusions were coming out of those discussions. Report on the death of Mr. Rohan Livingston Bryan at the Princess Margaret Hospital. The Southeast Regional Health Authority investigated the death of Mr. Rohan Livingston Bryan, who died on April 30th, 2024 at the Princess Margaret Hospital, 2 days after admission. Sarah's report identified several issues that may have contributed to the unfortunate outcome of Mr. Bryan. Investigations by Sarah are still ongoing. However, the case has also been referred to the patient complaints mechanism, where an expert panel of physicians and legal experts are being convened to review the issues raised in the report and to determine if there is any negligence on the part of any of the responsible personnel, as well as to make any recommendations for the way forward. That is the current state of play as it relates to that incident. The second is a report on the death of Miss Gloria Paris at the Falmouth Public General Hospital. Cabinet was also advised that preliminary investigations were conducted into the death of Miss Gloria Paris. The investigation is being conducted by the Western Regional Health Authority. The report noted the efforts made by the team at the facility and the fact that there were more support needed in the logistics coordination between facilities to support the transfer of patients. However, based on the assessment, it was determined that the management of the patient was, in this case, appropriate. It is further noted that by the assessors, that while communication could have been strengthened, the team undertook the necessary action to manage the case based on the diagnosis of that particular case. Cabinet, after reviewing the findings of the report, asked the team to ensure that the investigations are concluded urgently and that any remedial action required are implemented to ensure that the referral system are strengthened and that they become more agile in responding to complicated cases. The third, report on the death of Leonardo Blackstock at the Maypen Hospital. Cabinet noted that the Southern Regional Health Authority has provided a summary report on the process that were undertaken to manage young Blackstock, who died on June 11th, 2024 at the Maypen Hospital. Sarah's report details the efforts of the hospital to stabilize and manage the respiratory challenges that were experienced by baby Leonardo, and that the team followed the required protocol to have achieved a more positive outcome. While noting this tragedy and the effect that this death has caused on the family, members of cabinet expressed their concern related to the case, spoke to the team from the Maypen Hospital who were present, including the senior medical officer, about what more could be done to improve the service delivery to minimize these negative outcomes. Cabinet was advised by the senior medical officer of the hospital, as well as the chief medical officer, that while equipment to support service delivery is necessary, the need for more specialized staff to include pediatric nurses, pediatric anesthesiologists, among the other technical staff, was critical for the management of neonatal intensive care units. Based on the report, Cabinet advised the ministry should expedite its plans in improving the health system to include the investments that are to be made in human resources for health and the capital investment program. In terms of newborn health, a general statement flowing from that previous report, Cabinet noted the advice of the health team that Jamaica experiences a high rate of birth during the months of September to December. However, the rates of premature deliveries are highest during the months of June to August. Accordingly, every year, plans are put in place to manage the increase in critical illness. Premature newborns are highly vulnerable to infection and other issues that may result in negative outcomes. These interventions are reviewed, and hospital pediatric services and NICUs are appraised of existing and new clinical management protocols and infection prevention and control system to reduce the level of infant mortality. In terms of ventilators, another subject matter brief to Cabinet, Cabinet noted the report of ventilators from the ministry, and that ventilators are sensitive pieces of equipment that must be maintained on an ongoing basis in order to ensure the provisions of effective life-saving support. The ministry has conducted an audit to locate all the ventilators in the public health system. A statement that has been published from the audit, a total of 210 ventilators were located, and I think that audit was made public. In the terms of another issue, youth chat, which also occupied some public discussion, Cabinet also noted the issues related to the concerns raised by the members of the public in relation to the use of youth chat line. The Cabinet noted that based on the concerns, the application will be suspended as there is a need to ensure that the application adheres to the health and family life policy of the government of Jamaica. Youth Expression Youth Chat is a chat bot launched by the National Family Planning Board, NFPB, when it was in existence, because you probably will recall that it has been phased out and adopted now under the ministry's Family Health Unit, in collaboration with UNICEF and You Report Jamaica, and has been operational since January 2024. Resources to support the initiative were provided by UNICEF via the country development envelope funds. UNICEF reported a total expenditure of approximately 11.4 million Jamaican dollars on the contract for chatbot. And here at end my official statement. Madam Chair, I probably can stand up for 3 more minutes if there are questions, but the CMO is here to assist.
Go ahead, Naomi. Are there any questions?
Yes, thank you, Minister. We have a newbie here today, so he'll start off with you.
Sure.
Hi, good morning, Minister. I'm Jonathan Atkins here from CVM. So I'm interested to know how much has government procurement processes affected hospitals or general health centers across the country in able to access equipment and medical supplies in a time-efficient way?
Right. The procurement process is standard across the system, obviously, and you would have heard consistent discussions. I believe the Minister of Finance in his sectorial, in his budget presentation, accepted. The Ministry of Finance oversees that element of the process through PPC and so on, that the process is just taking too long. It's quite bureaucratic, and we understand why that is the case. There are many calls for trying to ensure transparency, accountability, and so on. But it has gotten to the point, I believe, for whatever reason, whether it's because of a lack of understanding of how the process works, and we do have cases of that within ministries, or just the many processes you have to go through, where it could take you a year, 2 years. I mean, for one error, could be sent back even longer. And so it is a real challenge. The response, as the government has said, is to review that process, to probably strengthen the audit function after the fact, as opposed to before. and of course, to educate and to build greater capacity internally so that we can respond in a more efficient way to the extent that there's a lack of understanding about the process, so we can improve it. But it is a challenge. It is a challenge. But there are provisions for emergency procurement, and in health as an essential service, from time to time, we exercise that option.
Thank you, Minister. I have one from Ms. Pullen, the health reporter, who is humbly asking me to ask you. Then, Minister, can you say the number of adult ICU beds in the public health system?
I would yield to my chief medical officer on that. I know we have quite a few, but I prefer her comments. I
Sure.
don't have the specifics. CMO, want to come and join me here? I know you don't need any aid to.
Hi, morning everyone. In terms of the number of ICU beds across the country, we presently have 43 ICU beds or ICU designated spaces that we can get up if we have staffing in place. In addition, we have 23 high dependency areas that have been created. We would also have within our recovery rooms the capacity to be able to ventilate persons for very short periods until they are able to be moved to a high dependency or a intensive care unit. And we have 19 such spaces in the recovery rooms. For our neonatal intensive care units, we have about 56 spaces across the country. Usually about a third to a half of these can be ventilated spaces, but many of these spaces support the babies with other means of respiratory support. And then through PROMAC, we had established 18 maternal high dependency units in 3 hospitals. So all of these spaces are potentially available. Not all of them are up and running. The running of a intensive care or high dependency space is highly dependent, not just on critical equipment, but also critical staffing levels. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CMO. That's quite a comprehensive response there. Let's then go to the Gleaner.
Good morning, Minister CMO Sashana Small from the Gleaner. Minister, the audit of the ventilators in the health sector did not state how many are assigned to NICU and pediatric units. So how many are assigned?
Again, let me ask the CMO if she has that data in front of her. I don't.
Right. As I have said before, the ventilators that are available the numbers are going to change daily. Okay, because these equipment have to be checked on a daily basis and may come down for whatever reason, which may be a short term or may take a little while to get them back up. So we have, at this morning's check, we had 90 that were working. Okay, now last week it might have been 100. It varies. Okay. Now, depending on the ventilators, whether or not the ventilators are made specifically to a particular setting to deal with neonates, or whether it is ventilators that can be used interchangeably among different age groups based on the connections and tubings that are there, these ventilators can move around. So if I have 8 ventilators working, say, for example, at Spanish Town Hospital, where I have a high dependency unit for adult, and I have NICU facilities, that is neonatal intensive care unit, those 8 ventilators would be moved to where they are needed. So to say specifically that we have 4 neonates versus specifically for adults, I could only say that, for example, in Victoria Jubilee Hospital, where those ventilators are specifically used only in the NICU.
Can I, and I'm sorry to do this, well, I don't scare my technocrats by going off script, but I know the mischief that is at play as it relates to ventilators, based on what has been said in the past about what we have now and whether it is enough. I think the CMO, correctly so, has pointed out in her technical explanation that a ventilator in and of itself serves no purpose unless it is supported by the team. So I want that to be an assumption that is importantly made and placed in the context. But just in terms of numbers, pre-COVID, we had 35 ventilators in the public health system. Today, just in numbers, depending on any point in time, we have over 100 at least active, not to mention what is at being serviced. So, you know, one could be very simplistic and say we have 200 to 300% more ventilators than we had pre versus post-COVID. That still does not explain its distribution, its usage, the technical requirements for it to be used. But given that sometimes the public and those who question these issues are more interested in whether or not the system is being served with more as opposed to less, I just want to clarify that we have probably 300% more ventilators than we had pre-COVID. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Minister CMO. Just two more questions.
Really punishing me, but okay, I'll take it.
Has any doctor specializing in complex airway disorders, which would decrease the need for ventilators for infants, have any doctors been denied support for training in that area? And Minister, there have been calls for you and the PS to resign. Are those calls valid?
All right, let me ask the CMO to answer the technical question. What was the question? If there are any doctors who provide training? Yeah.
I didn't hear the specific special.
Are there people who train the use of ventilators in the system?
We have different specialists. So the management of an intensive care space is multidisciplinary, because any person who is in an intensive care space is critically ill and may actually have multiple organ involvement. So commonly people think about intensive care space and high dependency care space, and they think about ventilation and people needing respiratory support. And so I imagine this is what you're asking about in terms of pulmonologists, critical care specialists, anesthesiologists, internists. These are persons that we have in our system. Many of these are subspecializations that are not offered in country. So we offer at the University of the West Indies postgraduate training in internal medicine and in anesthesiology. Persons would have to go on for fellowships overseas to do critical care medicine as well as to do pulmonology. And we do have some persons that are in training now. We do have limitations on the number of persons that go into DM training, but we've not had reason to deny any persons because of lack of space recently. Okay.
Thank you, CMO. Final question then.
Well, on the
Oh, I'm
issue of
sorry.
resignations, again, I thought you heard my statement earlier that I don't know if these calls warrant even a response, to be honest, because you're giving fodder to redundant assertions with no basis in fact or validation. Let me just say that I serve at the Prime Minister's pleasure and leisure. And until he say otherwise, everything else is noise. And you can quote me on that. As it relates to the Permanent Secretary, he reports, in this case, to a Public Service Commission. He's a creature of Parliament, and he accounts for his stewardship. And he's very capable of doing so. Everything else is noise. And that's all I am prepared to say on that.
Thank you, Minister. A final question then, Mahiri.
Morning, Minister. Mahiri Stewart from Nationwide News here. On our segment Public Opinion, we did ask the public what their scale, to rate basically the health sector on a scale of 1 to 5. And most of them rated it quite highly. But the biggest criticism that I noticed was that they had issues with customer care, or customer service rather. Is this something that you have noticed in the sector during your time as minister?
Well, I didn't see a poll, but I will take the rate highly as an endorsement and thank their listeners on behalf of the 23,000 public health team. But let me address a substantive issue about customer service. And I'm trying to be brief, but it requires a longer ventilation. This government has placed more resources in public health than any other period before since independence. And I say so without any fear of contradiction. And I'm prepared to go in the town square, stand on the highest soapbox, and defend that stewardship when the time comes. More doctors, more nurses, more build out, more ventilators, more diagnostics. It's not perfect, but from where it is coming, the 3 million visits per year and 200,000 inpatients who get care, the overwhelming majority leaves with a positive impression and leave and go back home to their families in a better position than they went. The truth is, it only takes 0.5% or less, especially if they are vocal, to raise issues. We don't have a problem with that because, in response to your question, it's a work in progress and people should be allowed to express their grievances if they have one. And there is a mechanism that we have strengthened for those grievances to be aired and for persons to be taken seriously and investigation pursued, as is the case with these three. The reality is that we have now a challenge, having spent so much money and are spending so much, to achieve a change management function within not even public health, but a public service. And I do believe that there is a systemic issue within government where sometimes we take our customers, our clients, for granted. And in public health, despite the best efforts of the overwhelming majority of our public health servants, doctors, nurses, and others, and the systems we have put in place in terms of customer service reps, we still have to work on showing greater levels of empathy, greater responsiveness and sensitivities to people's concerns, because more often than not, the irritation that is accompanied by the vocal expressions of disappointment are caused and triggered by very simple issues that could have been overcome by just a listening ear and a gentle response. And I agree with you and with the populace that we have to work on that. That's the next phase we're in. That's why we have a compassionate care program. That's why we're reviewing the internal mechanisms for complaints. And that's why I have consistently said that the next big challenge of public health is to enhance the change management so that we use the tools that have been empowered to us through the expenditures of the government to be more efficient and to demonstrate greater levels of empathy to the populace. So yes, it's a work in progress and we have to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, CMO.
Thank you, Minister. And while Minister leaves, again, just noting that the Cabinet stands with Minister Tufton, and we are very clear on that in Cabinet. And I see that the Gleaner posted a picture, Minister Tufton, of you walking in on your with your crutches, and the comments again say the issue that we have, and is this a Jamaica we want? We had someone saying that he should be hit again based on that picture. We had someone saying that he's lying and nothing is wrong with his foot. That cannot be the Jamaica that we want in any way, shape, or form. This is a minister who is trying his best, working with his team, with some very dedicated people in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And that is the comments we get. We can talk about the state of the Ministry of Health or our hospitals. We can do that. And we can do that respectfully without some of the negatives that we see so much on social media. And that's the conversation we need to have in Jamaica about what kind of country we actually do want to have. Now I'm going to move on from that to Minister. We had a poll asking which minister Jamaica wanted to hear from at post-cabinet press briefing, and you overwhelmingly won. So please help me welcome our Minister of Gender, Entertainment and Sport, the Honorable Olivia Grange, and also I need to acknowledge her PS, who is also here, Mr. Dean Roy Bernard. Welcome to the rest of the team. Over to you, Minister. And I know you've been waiting for her, and we usually save the best for last. That's what we always say. And she's going to have to come back again because I know we want to do more with Minister Grange. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. I'm very much aware of limitations on time, so I will do my best here. I want to acknowledge my colleague ministers, my other colleague ministers, although they have left, and to say that Minister Tufton, who sits beside me, I have volunteered to take care of him in cabinet. I want to acknowledge my permanent secretary and to state the fact that my ministry is the only ministry with 2 permanent secretaries. And it is working very well. And acknowledge my team that's present and the media. Now, in building the new Jamaica, our government has deliberately chosen to focus on developing the infrastructure across the country among our key deliverables. In my ministry, this has meant developing new facilities, rehabilitating aging ones, and repurposing others. I'm determined to present to the nation a redeveloped national stadium, a world-class facility that meets the regulatory requirements of international sports federations, among the deliverables of the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. For Independence Park, the home of the National Stadium, we have come up with an ambitious program of redevelopment, which has seen us over time resurfacing the running tracks, upgrade the aquatic center, upgrade the basketball and Neil Robinson netball courts, among other improvements, and including the establishment of monuments to our track heroes, Usain Bolt, Shelley and Fraser Price, Veronica Campbell-Brown, and Asafa. And more will be coming. And this is primarily funded through the Sports Development Foundation. The main stadium facility is a special and expensive project that requires a different approach to development. In this regard, we went through the necessary processes established by the Public Investment Management Committee, which approved our concept for the redevelopment, which was costed at $100 million. I give thanks to our development-minded Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and Public Service, who give constant support as we seek to redevelop this 62-year-old national stadium that has served us well, but whose features are now obsolete, unable to be upgraded, and will pose a challenge to normal operations, as the recent challenge with lighting demonstrated. With the agreement of the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Public Service, I make the following announcement. The government of Jamaica, acting through the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, recently signed a framework for cooperation with the government of the United Kingdom, acting through UK Export Finance. The framework establishes a basis for both sides to collaborate and cooperate for the purpose of financing projects in Jamaica involving exports from the United Kingdom for the purposes of achieving the economic development objectives of Jamaica. Among the priority projects listed to be addressed in this framework is the redevelopment of the National Stadium. Though this framework Through this framework, a team of architects and project managers from the UK held discussions with my team at the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, and the team was led by Permanent Secretary Dean Roy Bernard. Subsequently, they sent us a proposal for the renovation and redevelopment of facilities at Independence Park within the complex, particularly the National Stadium. The document, in essence, proposes to not only address the shortcomings of the existing stadium, but also to identify the full potential of this iconic stadium through its enhancement as a major tournament venue, training center, and visitor attraction to promote Jamaica and Jamaican sport talent. We considered the proposal. We looked at it very carefully. And this proposal also has the development of the long-awaited sports museum in its scope. And after careful consideration, we accepted the proposal. We have to ensure that we're doing the right due diligence. We're making sure that we're getting the buck for the money that we spend. We're getting what we require. So we communicated our decision to the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, because all of this is going through the Ministry of Finance. And I really want to thank the Minister of Finance for really giving me a lot of support in this regard. I'm fortunate to be sitting between the Minister of Health and the Minister of Finance in cabinet. So the funds will be released in short order after the Ministry of Finance, the technical folks, have gone through our response. The funds will be released. We are deliberately establishing a world-class stadium for world-class athletes and entertainers. And we're still targeting to break ground next year, the latest August 2025, but we hope to do so before. We have also asked the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service to provide special funding in the amount of 75 million Jamaican dollars for urgent remedial work at the National Stadium to address the lighting infrastructure. Now, this remedial work must be completed by September of this year for the stadium to meet the FIFA requirements for international matches that are scheduled to be played at the office in the second and third week of September. I also have exciting developments now. I'll move on from the National Stadium to the Trelawney Stadium. So we were determined to exploit the full potential of the Trelawney Stadium for the benefit of the Jamaican people. It is said that the stadium is sitting there as a white elephant, but that's not quite so. When it was built, it was incomplete. And so it has limitations. It doesn't have lighting. It doesn't have certain facilities that can make it a venue that can be used 24/7. However, it is being used. Now, we have been in discussions about a US $550 million development at the facility. The venture is driven by private equity and not public funding. The investors propose to transform Trelawney into a high-performance sports complex that can accommodate 21 sport disciplines, host international games, award ceremonies, and serve as training grounds. This sports tourism development, and I've always said that Trelawney Stadium would be at the center of a sports development program, sports tourism. And the proposal includes the construction of high-rise condominiums and a hotel. The discussions about this exciting development are going well, and I look forward to more constructive talks towards a deal very soon. I should indicate that this location, the location is a fantastic location. The facility is incomplete, but we are determined now to make it one of the premier facility in this region where people will come from all over the world to use the facility. Now, later this year, it is scheduled, the Trelawney Stadium is scheduled to host the Trelawney Football Association finals, the Sandals annual fun day, among other events. The facility is constantly booked. Now, I want to speak a little about community sports. The government continues to invest heavily in national, community, and school sport, welfare, coaching, and the development of facilities. And indeed, in the last calendar year, the Sports Development Foundation invested 515 million Jamaican dollars, more than $500 million, on programs and initiatives that reached every corner of Jamaica, from community sports to the elite level. This has never been done ever before in the history of Jamaica. We have done it. From building sports facilities in underserved areas to supporting local tournaments and leagues, the SDF worked hand in hand with national federations, and there are over 40 national federations, and they get monthly subvention from the Sports Development Foundation. And the foundation also supports agencies and communities to harness the power of sports for social and economic development. And I really want to make a special appeal. Yes, we are in the silly season, but when it comes to sports and entertainment, those are tools that we use to unite communities, that we use to unite a country. And I'm making a special appeal to my opposite folks. I think I have about 7 persons shadowing me. I have shadows, and I have shadows for the shadows. And I just want to say that I usually have an excellent relationship on those on the other side. And the young Turks who come in tend to think that they want to make their names. But I'm just saying to them, let us keep the unity going. Let us not exploit issues that you may consider negative to tarnish what the government is doing. I'm willing to work with you, and I expect you to work with me in the interest of Jamaica. Now, starting today, Jamaica's athletes will be in competition at the National Senior and Junior Championships, hoping to make the team for the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, which begin on July 26th. I know all of you here will join me in sending best wishes to all our athletes who will be on show at the National Stadium. And I want to make a special appeal to the public to turn out. I have instructed for the National Stadium for the bleachers to be open for persons to be admitted for free on Friday and Sunday. Please come out and support your athletes. Now, in a bid to encourage the athletes, the government will give a sum of $360,000 to each athlete who qualifies for the Olympics. And these funds will assist in their nutrition and their training. And I can tell you that this is the first time. We did it 2 years ago. We did it last year, and we're doing it again this year. No other government has ever done this. We've also set aside 50 million Jamaican dollars in incentives for members of our national team and support team who will compete at the Olympics. And on their return, we will have these funds to provide them. And what we ensure is that we send funds directly to the accounts of these individuals and not through any association. So we make sure they get the money. We will, and I'm not saying the associations will not provide the funds, but we just want to make sure we give it to them directly. We will use the opportunity of Paris 2024 to engage in what we call cultural diplomacy. We will be partnering with the city of Nanterre to stage Jamaica Day on Friday, August 9. And Jamaica Day will culminate with a mega reggae night concert. We're going to be featuring such artists as Julian Marley, Skip Marley, and Luciano. On Sunday, August 11, the final day of the Olympics, we will partner with the CRC Church in Paris to stage Jamaica Praise, featuring Kevin Downswell in concert. And you know, we have this vibe about gospel in Jamaica. So we're going to take it to Paris, and we're really going to give thanks and praise for all the medals that we're going to win. But it doesn't end there. We will also take the opportunity to finalize the twinning of Nanterre, France, and Spanish Town, Jamaica. The mayor of Nanterre and the mayor of Spanish Town will sign a partnership agreement which will see the start of a mutually beneficial partnership between the people of Nanterre and Spanish Town. So the mayor has confirmed, Mayor Scott has confirmed that he will be taking up the offer. He will take a delegation of 4, which includes the minority leader in the council, and that they will be prepared to give all the support that's necessary to make it happen. And I really want to thank the mayor and the team from the parish council for the support, positive response. Now, I'm going to move on to the Jamaica-China Sport Corporation program, which is back on track. The 3-year agreement under which 400 Jamaican sports representatives were to receive training in China was interrupted after the first 2 successful years by COVID. In this, the final year of the program, we are sending badminton, women's basketball, women's football, women's volleyball, gymnastics, and swimming teams for 60 days of rigorous training across China. We thank the government of the People's Republic of China for this support. We have had excellent results from those who we have sent for 2 years, Dion. We have, our delegation has numbered about 150 persons, and we have had good results. Some of our outstanding junior athletes at this time in swimming and in women's football came out of that program. Speaking a little on culture and heritage, we have taken steps to address the issue of night noise and insufficiency of entertainment venues by repurposing heritage sites into entertainment venues. In this regard, we carried out extensive rehabilitation and upgrade of the Seville Heritage Park in St. Anne, which is now available for use for a variety of events. We are breathing life back into Fort Rocky as a major venue in the Port Royal Entertainment Zone. Fort Rocky is suitable for the purpose intended with careful environmental and ecological monitoring. This year, we will proceed to build out the parking lots and viewing decks at Fort Rocky, and I can tell you it is going to be a beautiful site, a beautiful venue. We're also positioning Jam World to become the first operational 24-hour, in fact, 24/7 venue. And we are going to, in the interim, monetize the use that is now being made of the facility, because, you know, a lot of people go there to learn to drive and all of that. So we're going to fence the property, and we're going to monetize the use that is now being made of it until we have built out the design and the details for the facility. I should mention here that we're going to use approximately 30 acres of the land there to build out a sound stage for film and television. We are in advanced discussion with the company and the organization that wants to do that, and they are moving quickly to do what they have to do in order for us to sign the MOU. So not only will Jamworld be an entertainment venue, but it will also host a soundstage for film and television. Now, it took Prime Minister Holness, it took him to do the right thing by taking responsibility and apologizing for what happened in Coral Gardens in 1963, before he was even born. And some of the young people in the media may not know what happened, but I know they can do their research and find out. But it took this administration to establish a Coral Gardens Trust Fund, in which we have put $100 million to pay reparations. And the Prime Minister apologized for what was done in 1963. So I could go on and on and on. I know I'm aware of time, but what I want to indicate to the media is that I'm available at any time to provide you with more information. In fact, I want to host a press briefing with the sports media, because there's so much happening in sports, as well as the entertainment media, because one of a game-changing activity that we're going to be establishing an insurance plan for entertainers and creatives. But I will provide more details based on your questioning or when I host you at a special briefing. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister, and you can stay. Naomi, over to you. Let's see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much. Again, let's start with the newbie.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Atkins here from CVM. So there's a public row between the Jamaica Olympics Association and the J3As. And one of the points of contention is the funding of the national training camp for athletes going into the Olympics. Is the Ministry of Culture, Entertainment and Gender and Sports willing to intervene and maybe foot the bill for athletes going into that preparation camp?
Well, firstly, government can't interfere in the role. Government can only appeal to both organizations to work it out in the interest of Jamaica and in the interest of our athletes. Government is doing what government can do to give support to the athletes and to the J3As.
Everyone said I'd have to put my life on hold to earn a teaching degree. Everyone except WGU. With no set login times or test dates, I fit a degree into my schedule. Learn more and apply today.
Without the ones like you working tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. No matter your industry, Granger's here for you with professional-grade supplies. Call, click Granger.com, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Thank you, Minister. Let's go over to Ms. Small from the Gleaner.
Good morning, Minister. Tashana Small from the Gleaner. What assurance can you give the country that the public agencies will have their sexual harassment policy in place by June 30? And another question before you go on to that one, is there any plans to renovate the stadium at Sligoville?
To renovate the stadium?
Yeah. Sligoville.
Oh, in Sligoville.
Sligoville.
All right, regarding the sexual harassment policy, The companies were made aware that they had 1 year to have their policies in place. And we kept reminding them there will be sanctions for those who do not have their policies in place. However, the Bureau of Gender Affairs is available. There is a template, and the Bureau of Gender Affairs is available to assist companies, institutions that do not have their policies in place to quickly ensure that they have a policy in place and they inform their employees what the policy entails.
I'm sorry, hang on, Mr. Shauna. Minister, I don't think she's cutting you. She's just a clarification, correct? Yes.
Can you speak to the compliance rate among the companies and the government agencies, considering that the deadline is next week?
Could you repeat, if I could?
The
speak?
compliance rate for
compliance?
companies as well as government agencies, given that the deadline is...
It would be difficult for me to give you that information now, but I can provide it once I speak with the Bureau.
Thank you, Minister.
Now, the other question was
the Sligoville Stadium.
Sligoville Stadium. The Sligoville Stadium was a donation by the Chinese for the World Cup. And it should have been the venue that would host the opening ceremony of the World Cup. It happened that the government at the time decided to locate the stadium in the constituency of the Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time. The government proceeded to borrow funds, identified another location, and to build a facility. Sligoville Stadium has been there, and the current Member of Parliament has utilized the facility for an emancipation activity. It's underused as a sports facility, but the communities surrounding that facility would require a facility that can host sports and entertainment activities. And so we are looking at how we can assist in that regard. I can't say much more on the Sligoville facility, except to say that when we have sorted out all of that, we will make the announcements.
All right, thank you, Minister. Really appreciate that. Mahiri?
All right, question to Dr. Morris Dixon. Is there any update on who the new CEO of PICA is?
I think I had sent the information last week. There is an acting head of PICA. Naomi had sent it out to the media.
All right, so Minister, our final question then. We have a record today.
I know.
An hour and 40 minutes so far.
I know.
Okay, Senator Dixon, given the current narrative regarding, fake news and misinformation, the discussion surrounding it, is the government concerned that this narrative may have the counter effect of increasing the level of distrust in society?
I think that's what we're actually trying to prevent in terms of calling things out. And as government, you have to sometimes have some difficult conversations. And that's what we're having. And it is going to be a balancing act because, we are a democratic country and we pride ourselves on democracy. We pride ourselves on dealing with difficult questions. Post-cabinet press briefing is not an easy thing. You have the media come each week and we bring the ministers out to be questioned. And that is something that's very important. And so we are very much open to questioning and dissent. The question really is about untruths, fake news, and the impact that can have on our country and on our society. And the question really should be, should our government not protect its democracy and protect its institutions from lies. And that's what's really the conversation. And I've seen some individuals try to change the narrative to make it seem as if there is some kind of dictatorial type element to it, when there is not any of that. There is obviously openness to dissent. That's what a democracy is about. And we hold to those democratic ideals really, really strongly. But the question is, should someone be allowed to go on social media and write something that is patently false and that can have a debilitating impact on people's lives? And we're talking about it in the political realm, but we've been getting a lot of people writing to us, even about children in high school, where social media is used to bully or young people. There are a lot of psychological issues that are taking place where our young people are in distress, are in emotional distress, are in psychological distress because of the bullying, the threats that take place on social media. It permeates the entire society. It's a question we have to ask ourselves. What is the Jamaica that we want? What kind of Jamaica do we want? We hold high certain ideals, but at the same time, we have to hold the ideal of truth strong. And that's what our government is saying. And it's a conversation we're going to have. And as I said, we're starting with educating people how to know what's true, what's not, sending them to you and your media house and your group, saying, go to traditional media, verify it. Check if it is true. I remember back in the day when, I don't see Abka here today, but I remember when I used to see something, I'd say, did Abka say it? And I'd go on his side to see if he actually did say it, to confirm that it was true. We have to ensure that we teach our people how to verify that something is true. And I tell you, with artificial intelligence, it's going to get even harder for us to discern what's real from what's not real. And I think we should all work together, especially you in the media, have to work with us as government in figuring it out. How do we make sure that the news that our people consume is based on facts? Whether it's good or bad towards the government, it must be based in some kind of fact.
Thank you, Minister. And yes, the JIS has a fact-checking site.
Yes. Oh, let me just note that. Thank you. The JIS's fact-checking website is available, and you can go there and you can check on anything that you may hear to see if it is true. And they are very much committed to updating that site, and it's one area that we can use. And as I said, the Broadcasting Commission will soon be embarking on a public education campaign around the use of social media and how to know if something is true.
Thank you, Minister. Well done. And it's now 1 hour and 45 minutes.
I know, it's been very long. And I should note, I got Minister Grange's phone while she was answering questions. It was Minister Clark who was calling her. He is at an official event. He's representing Jamaica in Singapore, and he was calling her about funding for her activities. So we do know that you have a government that's working really hard, irrespective of where they are. And this is a coordinated government. We're working together. We like each other, and we are working towards the betterment of Jamaica and ensuring that we do have prosperity for all Jamaicans. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week for another wonderful post-cabinet press briefing.
Welcome to another edition of Dolphins in Depth podcast, brought to you by the Miami Herald.